episode 4 of Not Your Average Breakdown with me, Claudia, and my co-host,
Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Claudia. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm actually doing great because today, before we talk about our topic, our next topic, I wanted to tell you, and it's a full circle moment from our episode last week, that I went out and I voted today.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
Yep, I took action and I voted in my town, and I'm going to say it was thrilling. So I got out of my car today and I was just feeling so empowered because I actually took the time to research the candidates beforehand, and I went in there, did my duty, and came out of there, got my sticker, and it was thrilling.
Nice. Was the process easy?
It was. I mean, they're a little old school in my town where I had to do a paper ballot, but you know what? It didn't matter. I loved filling in every single one of those circles.
Yeah, I like the old school ones. Like it makes you feel like more important than like some of the modern ballot boxes. I feel like I don't know, they take away that sort of like, oh, I'm voting, I'm circling like something on my paper.
I don't know. It felt historical, Alex. Like I mean, I haven't done the circles probably since the SATs or college, but it felt historical doing it that way, and I just enjoyed it.
Nice. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of you because this has been an issue in our friendship for as long as I can remember.
That's a fair point. Yep. And so now we're working on it. We're working through it.
All right. I like that.
Perfect. So now we're going to head off into our next topic, which I brought to you, Alex. And it's because I know nothing about this topic, but I keep seeing it pop up in the news. And it's about the writer's strike.
Yes. So you send me this topic, and I just want to make sure that you are aware that all up until September 27th, there were two strikes going on. It was actually the WGA, or Writers Guild of America. They ended their strike, and on September 27th, as I mentioned, they finally negotiated their contract. And there is another strike still going on as of the recording of this podcast. I checked a few minutes right before we started to make sure that they didn't strike the deal, but they did not. So this one is for the Screen Actor Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So it's a quite long name, and they started on July 14th, and it's still ongoing. And that's probably what you. I'm assuming that's what you saw on the news because you sent it to me a few days ago.
Okay, so I actually didn't realize there was two strikes going on. So I'm glad that you bring that up. That's how much I don't know about it. But so I guess we're going to get a double.
Yeah, two for one.
We're going to get a two for
My
one special
special.
today because I had no idea. But this is exactly why we need to do this, because this sort of information is just good to know. And I'm actually very interested in hearing about it because I know it's been affecting a lot of new shows getting released, and some of my favorite shows getting recorded. So I want to know what is going on.
Yes, I actually have a full list of productions that are either postponed or canceled or affected, and there's some like major franchise movies and TV shows. So a lot of stuff is gonna get impacted probably late next year and then 2025. So I'll give you a list later on, but not right away because I don't want to disappoint you in like first 5 minutes of our podcast.
Yeah, I need to know, especially about my Netflix shows. So yeah, give it to me, Alex.
Okay, so I'm gonna start us off. So the WGA, the Writers Guild of America strike, they started their strike on May 2nd and they ended it on September 27th. So it was a 148-day strike, which was the longest interruption of American film and television productions actually since COVID-19 pandemic.
Whoa, okay.
and it is the second longest labor stoppage that WGA had performed since their strike in 1988, which lasted 153 days. So it was pretty close, right? So they ended their strike at 148 days. That's really cutting it close. It's only 5 days difference from their longest strike. And then the Screen Actor Guild, they started their strike on July 14th, and they're still, as I mentioned, they're still striking. They have been negotiating a few days ago. Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, their alliance of all these big studios. So your Paramount, Sony, Netflix, Disney Studios, Warner Brothers, and even like NBC, Universal. So any major production company in Hollywood, they are part of this alliance, and so they give out contracts to these writers and actor guilds. So the actors and writers, they're unionized. That's why they're negotiating their contract. So usually every 3 years they negotiate, and
I
that's why
feel,
they're
Alex, I feel like I've heard them striking before, and not just once. So in the past, this has happened a few times, right?
Yes, it actually happens like every few years. So before the 2023 strike, there was a 2007 and 2008. It was the Writers Guild of America strike. And then in 2000 and 1988, there was a commercial actor strike. But in 1988, Writers Guild of America was striking again. So as you see, like every couple of years, there is something happening. And usually, when people or employees go on a strike, is because they're trying to negotiate better working conditions. But this one in particular is quite interesting for both the actors and the writers because they're looking for similar condition improvements. And one of the biggest topics that they're discussing is actually AI, artificial intelligence. And I say this is interesting because we've never experienced this before. AI is quite new to everybody.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting it to show up in, in Hollywood, basically.
Yes, so one of the things that the production companies started doing is they started implementing AI. The problem with that is that when they're using an image of an actor, they do not pay the proper wage to that actor. And so in the contract that the latest contract right before they went on strike, that they offered to the actors this one-time fee. I think it was worth 1 day's pay where they would get this fee for the studio using their image in form of AI. And so the actors thought that this is not fair because the studio can use their, you know, likeness you produced through AI anytime they want, but they only pay the actors this one-time fee. And it's really not a lot because not all of the actors make millions, right? Not everybody has the income of George Clooney or Jennifer Lawrence. Those are A-list actors, but the average actor actually, on average, I was reading, makes about $5,000 a month. And that's really nothing because a lot of them are seasonal workers. So if the production stops, they don't get paid,
Hmm.
and so they depend on these unions to fight for them to get them good health care coverage, pension plans or 401ks, because they went on strike. Now they don't have anything, right? So they are not getting paid. They have mortgages, they have rent, they have families, they have bills to pay, and currently they're not making any money, but they're trying, even through that hardship, they're trying to fight for for better working conditions for them. And AI, as I said, is one of the biggest topics that they're discussing. But it's not only AI. They're trying to increase their minimum pay. They're trying to, keep up the pace with the inflation. Yeah.
So, as far as the AI goes, are you saying that these production companies want to use their likeness in new productions and don't want to pay for them, or are they talking like residuals here?
So they're talking both, but residuals, I'm glad you brought that up because residuals have been a hot topic in Hollywood. This is the one of the main reasons in the recent history why a lot of these unions went on strike is because the studios and production companies are trying to decrease the payments of residuals. And we've seen this with the rise of the streaming media, right? Before, when the peak TV was on, right, everybody had a cable and people were going to the movies, like brick and mortar theaters. It was different because the actors and the writers will be getting residuals based on how many times something is played in a theater or how
Mm-hmm.
many times it's played on TV. But that doesn't happen anymore because a lot of cable and TV in general switched to streaming media.
Okay.
Alliance of the motion picture and television producers, they are trying to cut residuals as much as possible, and they have cut as much of the writers and actors average income compared to a decade ago. It is insane. So that is why they went on strike even before 2023.
It's part of the evolution, I imagine, because people aren't playing things the way they used to. They're not watching things the way they used to. I imagine though, when the streaming services, sign on new products, basically, that they're either buying them in some form. It's got to just be a different pay structure than before. So, I don't know. Are they expecting their pay to be the same, to get paid in the same way when everything has changed?
I get your point, and I'm glad you said that. So, I like to bring receipts to everything.
You always
So,
have receipts. My
here I
God.
come. Okay. So, there is something called minimum basic agreement, and that is what covers the collective bargaining agreement, which is what makes something a union. It covers most of the work that is, that actors and writers do, or everybody in Hollywood. And so the minimum basic agreement was an agreement that established a minimum wage for television and film writers. But in television, the minimum basic agreement only applied to those who wrote for broadcast television
Mhm.
shows and not for streaming television. Okay, so those are two
Right.
different things.
Right.
And there was a comparison that was done between the late night talk show that was produced for broadcast television, like such as Late Show with Stephen Colbert on CBS, or The Problem with Jon Stewart, produced on for Apple TV. The writers actually who worked on The Problem with Jon Stewart were not covered by NBA, and therefore they had to negotiate individually with the streaming company. So in this case, it was Apple TV, and as a result, they were paid less than the writers who wrote for a broadcast television.
Oh,
So that is where the problem comes in because the streaming service doesn't want to pay high fees, right? Because they're constantly streaming. So the
right.
residuals obviously will be higher because it's on demand.
Right. And there's
You
no
can
ads.
exactly. Well, some like Hulu, for example, has ads, but I said I was going to bring receipts, and so I have them. Okay. The CEO of the Walt Disney Company, when the actors went on strike, he was pretty pissed and he said that their demands were not realistic. Mind you, they wanted their minimum wage raised, they wanted better health insurance coverage, pension plans, and they wanted to control the AI usage. So really, if you think about it, they none of that is not realistic. But this was his comment. Okay, he said it's not realistic.
Is
Not
okay, can I
realistic.
ask you, is it Bob Iger? Is he still the
Y-
CEO?
Yes,
Okay. I actually like him.
I
I
know
don't
you
know.
do.
I read his book and it's so good. Okay, but continue. Continue.
I'm sorry I have to crush your dreams. I'm not
No,
his
I
biggest
know.
fan, but I feel like a lot of CEOs, this, I don't have like a personal vendetta against him or something, but I feel like a lot of CEOs who are in those, he's a very high profile person because he works for, such a huge company. As I said, he criticized the actors and he said that, because they went on strike, they're adding to the challenges, um, to the business that, it's already facing post pandemic. They're trying to recover. They're trying to, launch all these productions that were sitting in queue probably for 3+ years since
Mm.
2020. He has been criticizing actors. However, his contract with Disney allows him to earn as much as $27 million in 2023 between his salary and bonuses. So he makes over 500 times the median salary of Disney employees.
I don't.
I
Here's the thing. So now I'm gonna, throw this at you. But he is not just. I mean, it's not just Disney we're talking about. They bought so many syndicates that this man is in charge of so many things that I don't feel like you could even compare what the writers and the actors are doing to compared to what is under his watch basically.
okay, I get your argument, but I'm gonna throw this curveball at you.
Let's go.
He is the CEO of this major company. Yes, Disney is not just Disney. They own, they're partial owners of Hulu. They actually just announced a few days ago that they're going to buy the remaining shares of Hulu, so they're going to be the sole owner.
Yep.
They own ABC. They own all
Yep.
these smaller.
ESPN, don't they own ESPN too?
Yes. So, and I think they actually own. Did I thought I saw that they maybe own Fox or something.
Not
Because they own
sure.
The Simpsons. That's how I Google. I love the Simpsons. So, me and Alan were looking it up, and I think they bought partial shares of Fox.
Okay.
So, yes, they're huge. Granted, he is in a very important role, so absolutely he should be making a lot of money. However, his job depends on these actors, the writers, the directors, anybody who makes the show happen because he doesn't. Okay,
For sure. For sure. Yes.
and so the fact that the writers and the actors and anybody in Hollywood who is trying to get better, conditions for themselves are making literally couple of thousands of dollars and not even every month.
Mm.
So only while there is a production happening, they make money. So if they're, trying to cast another role or the season goes, the season ends and they make a break before the another production starts, like they don't get paid through that. So for somebody who makes $27 million in a year to say that the actors' demands are not realistic, I feel like that is very cocky thing to say. But also, and we can definitely make an episode out of this, is that the fact that he makes 500 times over a median salary of a Disney employee, that is also a huge disparity in our system.
Right. In
Like our,
general. Yeah.
yes. So the rich are getting richer, but the average folks, the 99% of the nation, is struggling. And that is not how it's supposed to be
Well,
because
this
we
is well,
support them.
you're showing that you're kind of exposing that the actor lifestyle is just not as glamorous as it looks.
Yes, because there is only a a selected few, really, if you look at it, that are actually made it, that they're A-list actors, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they don't get a breakthrough until they're 50. So they spend, 20, 30 years struggling trying to make it and getting paid pennies compared to CEOs of these productions who don't want to give, better working conditions to already struggling actors.
Hmm.
And the same thing goes for the writers as well, because they don't get recognized as much as they should. And so they also wanted to regulate the AI in their industry because AI can be used, and this is what they were afraid of, that the AI is going to be used literally to replace them, that it's going to be used to write the material, and then they're going to become obsolete. So they're fighting against it.
That is so scary. I mean, but you think about it and you're like, how can AI replace the imagination of a human being? But I don't know how far this will go. I mean, it learns new tasks and ways to build stories, I guess, every day.
It is really scary if you think about it, because AI is going to impact all of our jobs. For a job where writing and ideas are, their sole purpose, AI can really endanger them because it picks up on a lot of data, right?
Hmm.
It's a large data processing system. So literally you can input millions and millions of scripts and documents, and it's going to learn.
Hmm.
It's learning how to pick up on your writing style, how to pick up on your language, your vibe. Like it can literally replicate you because it's studying you. So imagine these studios, they can upload, the one writer's life's work, literally,
Yeah.
and the AI can learn how to replicate this person. I don't know, like within hours, days, and then that person is just deleted from
Yeah.
everything, right?
You're
They don't
obsolete.
need this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I feel
Wow.
like their fears are not unfound. They are very, concerned that they're going to get replaced, and that's scary. Like if you really think about it, like when the writers went on strike, all of the talk shows stopped. Like Saturday Night Live, The Daily Show,
Yeah.
all the talk shows, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, everything stopped. And
Yeah.
so imagine if those shows were literally written by AI.
I can't imagine. I don't even know what that would be like because I don't know if they've been, I mean, obviously they're probably already using them in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, with all that stopped, it's like eerily silent. Those talk shows bring joy and information and creativity to people all the time on a regular basis. And you definitely feel the missing presence of that in what you're watching.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to know how it would look if we got, a whole show out of AI. But actually, I read an article a few months ago while the writers were still on strike, that Netflix posted a job opening for AI analyst, or I don't even know how to call it, like the person that's going to run AI or build AI, and they were paying $950,000 for this position. And so everybody on the internet was outraged because Netflix was literally paying, almost like $1 million for somebody to build AI while the writers are fighting to get,
Wow.
$3 on their hourly wage.
Yeah.
So you can see that there is a big difference on how the production companies are looking at this situation, and how, the worker bees are looking on this, because the studios are looking to get the most profits. That's That's their sole purpose. That's that CEO's purpose, like we talked about Bob Iger, and that's really what he's there for. He is not there to make creative decisions. He's there to make financially sound decisions. And so whatever is going to bring profits to that company, they will do it.
Yeah, show me what you're spending your money on, and you're showing me what you value. So
Yes.
I didn't even know this was going to be an AI discussion because I was not prepared for all this, but it's infiltrating our lives. And it just gets, it's really getting me anxious at this point, with how it's bleeding into everything. But good for these people standing up for themselves and proactively uh, getting out there and being one of the first, groups to actively protect themselves.
Yes, I actually think about it all the time. I mean, I'm an internal auditor, and AI can easily replace what I do. If they get AI to be as precise, as a human, it can easily replace me. And currently is not at the state where it can replace me specifically in my role. But who's to say that that's not going to happen in 3 years?
Right. It's just a matter of time. So, people like these groups starting the advocacy for themselves, that is going to lead to some kind of restrictions being put in place so that we are protected as human beings, because we can't just make ourselves obsolete. So regulations need to be put into place so that we don't have to sit in fear of how many of us are going to lose our jobs. And this is just a prime example of that. And in the future, I see this just like steamrolling into just all industries.
Yes, I agree. AI scares me, to be honest. And like you said, good for these unions in Hollywood that are trying to start this fight and protect themselves, because the Writers Guild of America, they once they negotiated their new contract, they have another 3 years where they're potentially safe
Hmm.
from being disposable, really.
How so with the writer strike that's over? What are the big topics that they advocated for, and did they get it?
So they did get it. They advocated for labor dispute in the residuals from streaming media. That was one of the biggest topics. As I said, the Alliance of Motion Picture was trying to cut those residuals as much as possible. The other thing that they wanted is that they wanted artificial intelligence, like such as ChatGPT, to be used only as a tool that can help with research and facilitate maybe scripts as an idea, but not as a tool to replace them.
Right. Yeah.
And also the COVID-19 pandemic, that also took a huge toll on Hollywood, and they, as an aftermath, they saw major reductions in their workforce, and a lot of movies got canceled, a lot of productions got canceled because they didn't have money, they didn't have funding. People didn't know, where we were going to be 3 years from when 2020 happened. So they canceled those productions, and then they had to reduce the staff. So they were, trying to fight for better contract contract obligations.
Mm.
And so they got a pretty good deal. I think they reached like a tentative agreement. So it is still not, fully enforced, but they stopped striking. And I don't know if you noticed, but for example, Saturday Night Live went back
Yes,
into
I saw that.
production, and The Daily Show. And so they went back to work, but they're still waiting for their agreement. Currently, it's just tentative.
Oh, so when are they going to finalize that? What? I don't understand.
It takes a very long time because the collective bargaining agreement is this massive and complex legal document, and because it involves so many entities, it literally can be, months.
Some of the shows can go back to airing though, but some just are kind of in the hopper waiting.
I'm pretty sure that they all went back to airing. Now that I think about it, they went back because they agreed, one, that they're gonna, stop picketing, and two, that they reached this tentative agreement.
Mhm.
And so the agreement that they reached, for their minimum wages increase, and they got better health and pension contribution rate, which was, I mentioned that before, that's for both writers and the actors. They wanted better healthcare insurance options and pension plans
Mhm.
because they weren't fully funded and they were very expensive. They they established regulations for the use of AI. And it says that AI can't write or rewrite literary material, and AI generated material will not be considered source material under this MBA. The AI generated material can be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights. And that's huge, right? Because
Yeah.
they literally got 3 years of regulating AI. Because in 3 years, we don't know where AI is going to go.
Right. Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah. But the actors, they're still on strike, and they actually got, they started negotiating, I want to say Friday, because the studio said that this is their final offer. Actors said that they're going to review the contract, and they still haven't reached an agreement. So I saw that they were negotiating yesterday, they negotiated today all day, and they're set to negotiate this evening because they have been literally working on this day and night. I kid you not, they have these like virtual meetings throughout the entire night. And that's what they have been doing for months now. But I said, the Disney CEO made that kind of out of touch comment. But actually, one of the executives from the this alliance of the motion picture producers, she actually said that their current strategy is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses.
Oh my God.
How out of touch is that?
That is terrible.
Yeah,
First of all, I didn't even know how they lasted this long without getting any paychecks. I mean, that's a huge commitment. And they didn't budge and back down, even in the state that they're in. But to do that and to actually admit to it, you're a monster.
yeah. And so that's the point that I was trying to reach with you, before when you said that, Bob Iger deserves to make this money. And I don't dispute that, but it's the fact that he thinks, or they think, it's not just him. He's not the only problem, right? It's a collective thing where they think that they deserve more money, and the rest of us, don't need anything.
That's terrible. I mean, that's
Yeah,
terrible. The position that these people are in, trying to fight for their rights and their jobs and better life for themselves, and they just use that against them, and that's pretty terrible.
yeah. But I feel like that's the state of US economy in general. Hollywood is not exclusive industry that has this issue. I know, I was actually just telling somebody that few years ago I watched this documentary called The Price We Pay, and it was about Walmart. It was showing how when the employees, in your Walmart store, the cashier, the, whoever, when they sign their employment agreement, or whatever you call it, and they fill out their paperwork, the branch gives them this sheet where it has all of the government assistance programs for like food stamps, affordable housing, so like all of these things that, government funding programs, because Walmart is paying them, below minimum wage or minimum wage and not a cent more. So they literally had to rely on food stamps
What?
and government funded programs instead of paying their employees a competitive wage, where they can
Right.
survive on.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That is terrible.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Do they talk about what the sticking point is on finalizing the actors strike? Is there one topic that they're contesting more than the others?
Yes, it's the AI. So the production studios, they're really pushing to use the AI more than what the actors are willing to budge for.
Oh,
So that is the big, negotiating thing that's happening. I feel like when it comes to residuals for the actors, they have a bigger chance to get a more favorable deal in because the writers got a more favorable deal when
mhm.
it comes to residuals. But the AI, it's new, it's hot. Everybody wants to mess with it. Everybody wants to be involved in it. A lot of companies are investing money into research. They're investing money into these companies that are coming up with AI. And so I feel like the production companies are trying to um, be pioneers in their field using AI, but they're forgetting that they would not make it without the people that they have.
Right, right. The inspiration for it.
Exactly. And what happens if the AI fails? That is always like my argument. If we're implementing something, is it fail proof, or is there room for failure? And
Right.
how do we know? How do we test AI that is going to be accurate, that it's going to be correct, that knows what it's doing? So there's a lot of unknowns with it, and I feel like the actors in Hollywood have a good chance to get a better deal currently, but once they do, they have 3 years to figure it out, and then
Yeah.
probably in 3 years they're gonna have another issue.
Yeah. I like the train of thought that comes through my mind is that just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. And that is the basis of a lot of things, but this applies to AI. Like, just because we can does not mean we should. I mean, morally, doesn't mean
I
we should.
agree. I absolutely agree, because AI really should be used in conjunction with the humans rather
Right.
than just running loose.
Agreed. Agreed. So, what happens now? Where do we go from here?
So you're reading my mind actually, because I was gonna say, I told you I was gonna give you a list of productions that were impacted by the actor strike.
Yes.
And so are you ready for this? I'm gonna pick some of like the major ones because the list is
Don't up,
there's like it's probably hundreds
don't upset
of.
me, Alex.
All right, I have to a little bit. So from the film, all the avatars, they're suspended currently.
Okay.
Production
Okay.
suspended. I don't know if you're a fan of Avatar.
I'm emotionally okay about that.
Beetlejuice 2.
Oh, I want. Okay. Okay. All right.
So their production is suspended. Deadpool 3, production suspended and release date delayed indefinitely.
What? That one
Fantastic,
hurts.
Fantastic Four,
Okay, it's all right.
The Karate Kid 2.
Uh, totally fine with that.
I loved that movie as a kid, but I'm
You
not sure I
would.
will watch a number two.
That
They
was you.
also,
That's because that was
I,
you in the streets in Serbia.
I did karate for 11 years.
You know it.
I competed professionally, so I
You.
I'm emotionally attached to it. But don't they have a spin-off series on Netflix, Cobra Kai
Yeah,
or
there
something?
was that, but I don't know. I mean, you can't replace the movie with the series. It's probably
Yeah, and
totally different.
they're super old as well now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, your kids are not small anymore, so they're not gonna be probably upset about this, but Lilo and Stitch, their
No.
production is suspended. Moana,
Moana?
yeah. So I think they were trying to make it like the
What?
actual movie, and I thought I read that The Rock was gonna play in it. Because
What? So they're taking it from animated to real life?
yes, yep.
Oh.
So that production is suspended. Mortal Kombat 2 also suspended. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I don't know if your kids are into that.
Yeah, my youngest is. I'm not. It wasn't a great movie, but he loved it.
Oh, actually, that's quite interesting. So Sonic the Hedgehog, it says the filming started without actors. So very
Okay.
confused to know what
Well,
that
there
is.
is CGI and stuff in it, so I maybe they're. I have no idea.
Okay. Spider-Man, Superman, and I think I saw pretty much all of the Marvel movies that
Hmm.
were coming out. They all got postponed to like 2025. Let's see some television. So, American Horror Stories,
I
production
can't watch
suspended.
scary things. That's fine.
But how you always want to watch Dateline when we're together?
That is different. That's crime.
Okay, so then you don't
It's
care
not
about.
spooky shit, Alex. I can't take spooky shit.
I don't do horror movies.
I don't either. I
I
can't do it.
sometimes I find them stupid sometimes.
Yeah, and well, no, no, will think about them as I'm trying to sleep at night, so I can live without that anxiety or fear.
Well, did you ever watch Emily in Paris on
Yes.
Netflix?
Yeah.
Season 4, it says production start delayed.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Euphoria.
Never watched it.
I really wanted to get into it, but I felt like it was not made for my generation
Hmm.
because it was
Interesting.
like a lot of young actors. And
Okay.
I think it was about a high school. So, but
Yep.
it was huge. That was like all that I could see on social media when it
Yeah.
was running. It was on HBO, but the production start delayed and release date delayed. So God knows when that's gonna come up. Law and Order season 23 actually production
Season
suspended.
2022. You
Yep.
mean that's been around forever?
Yeah. So 23 seasons. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Stranger Things on Netflix.
You're hurting me, Alex.
Sorry, production start delayed. The Walking Dead. I
Nope.
think it's a sequel. I never watched it. The White Lotus.
I never
I
watched the first one. You told me about it, and it's on my list to watch.
don't know if you're gonna like it. I have mixed feelings about it. I feel like the first season was way better
Okay.
than the second season.
Okay.
Second season could have been a movie, not 6 episodes.
Okay.
Okay, so I have some additional films that are completed filming prior to the strike but had their release dates affected due to strike.
Okay.
And a lot of these movies are pushed for mid to late 2024 and some into 2025. We have, oh my God, Godzilla and King Kong.
Okay.
I don't know how many movies they already have, but it's pushed. Um, Snow White. Oh, that's a bummer. I was actually looking forward to that.
That's interesting for you.
I know.
Is it a badass Snow White? Is that why you're into it?
I think it's actually like a quite progressive Snow White
Okay,
where
that
she's
explains it. Okay, that
yeah,
explains it better. Okay.
looking to be independent. I think that's what the article that I read on BuzzFeed. So,
Okay. Okay.
the Underdogs, Ghostbusters sequel.
Oh.
That's pretty much it that you would potentially care about.
Okay. So there's some that deeply wound me, but not a lot. So I can't say that I'm terribly upset, but myself, along with the rest of the world, wants these things back in action. But I
Absolutely.
understand that these people need to fight for their rights. They need to protect themselves. They need the best for their families. So more power to them, man. After hearing this,
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I think they're doing a very brave thing, to better their lives and careers and everything, livelihood. I mean, everything depends on this. So, good for
well,
them.
I hope it works out for them. And I'm just so appreciative that you took the time and learned about it. Were you already into this a little bit, Alex, or did you really have to start from scratch on this topic?
No, I followed it, every few days or so because I don't make fun of me. So when I work, I on one screen I have the news playing, and
What
then
is
like I
wrong
have
with you?
my other screen is my actual work. And so I would see, the news that will come up about the strike. So I knew that there were two strikes, and I knew that the AI was a big thing,
Mm,
the talking point, but I didn't know about, all the details. So I did some research over the weekend just to get more familiar with what is actually happening. But then, how I tend to do, I go down this rabbit hole because
yep.
one article leads me to another, and I feel like I don't really understand a lot of Hollywood stuff. I'm not
Yes,
big into
same.
like Disney and Universal and stuff like that. So I was trying to understand how their unions work because I deal with unions in my job. We have a lot of unions, and you know, I audit their contracts. And so I was like, okay, let me see how I can relate this to what the actors and writers and anybody who in Hollywood who ever went on strike, how their contracts work versus ours.
Yeah, it's such
So
a different world that I really had no idea what this could be about. I just knew it affected all of us because, our favorite shows and movies would be affected by that, but I wanted to know. I it was enough of like hearing about it, but not knowing anything about it. And of course, I think that news is your hobby. So this
yep.
is why this podcast exists. So you researched this weekend while I researched on my couch under a blanket. As
Yeah.
if you follow our Instagram, you would have seen what I'm talking about.
It is painfully true, but I enjoy doing this. So
Yeah,
I have to say, so when the actors went on strike, I was like, what the hell are they striking about? Like
yeah,
they probably make so much money, right? Because that's the first thing when somebody says like a Hollywood actor, I immediately think The Rock,
yeah.
you know,
Right,
George Clooney,
right. A little
you know,
entitled, a little, a lot overpaid, glamorous lifestyle. What do
yeah,
they have to complain
mansions.
about? Right, exactly. You live in
Yeah,
California, um, you know, not relatable to anyone that I know. So,
yeah, exactly. But then, I started watching the news and then I was reading a couple of articles and you learn that, those actors, the A-list actors, as some call them, they are literally like 1%
mm,
of the actual actors. There is
yeah,
like, 100,000 people in this union, and that they literally make minimum wage, that they're barely surviving. It was an eye-opening thing for me because I think it was like my unconscious bias just
yeah,
towards that
agreed. I mean,
towards that industry.
there's so many more supporting actors and even, uh, extras. You got to think about them. I mean, there's so many. So there's is such a wide span that we're talking about that have to be considered.
I agree. Since Matthew Perry died, recently, and there is a lot of articles that are coming up about him. And one of the things that I read is that he was living off of residuals of friends, and that he was getting about $20 million a
What?
year from friends as they
That's
play.
residuals? Wow.
Because they initially got paid, when they were filming in the 90s, but that's over, so they sustain on the residuals.
Yeah.
And I Friends is one of those things that still play on TV. Like I
Yeah.
watch them all the time, so I travel quite a lot, and every time I'm in a hotel, I play. I know exactly where they are. That's like the funniest thing. I know exactly on what channel they're playing, and that's what I watch in the evening, So they still are on cable TV, and obviously they're on streaming service, so they're on Max, the former HBO Max,
Hmm.
and that streaming service pays them, millions of dollars every year to have the rights to have, the show on their streaming service. And so that's what, they make money from. But you really, if you think about it, if he didn't have friends, what else did he like? He was in few movies. I remember watching him in one movie with Bruce Willis
Yep.
when he was like super young. Um, but I feel like that movie didn't really like it's not a classic movie. It's not super
No.
famous. So
Yeah.
residuals for that are much lower, right?
Right.
And so if he didn't have this major breakthrough through Friends, like he wouldn't be making millions of
Right.
dollars.
Right. He's the minority, really.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm glad we know about it now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this topic up. This was a little change of pace for me, as actually I sent you this morning a screenshot. My friend Randy, he asked me if I'm trying to run for a political office because
We have to break it up.
yeah, our topics are quite political.
Yeah, but the politics is where people get the most interested and um, have so much to learn, and it's so important to everyone, and it affects everyone. So that's why we talk about it, and it's the stuff that people don't want to get involved in because it's so messy.
True, and I feel like politics are one of those things because they're like so polarized. Everybody has an opinion on it. And
Hmm.
so that's all you see on social media. People sometimes form opinions based on partial information, and that
Right.
also causes friction online, you
Yep.
know. But topics like this, when you see an article, you're like, oh, whatever, something's happening in Hollywood. Like you're almost detached from it because it doesn't
Yeah.
affect you
Right.
unless you're in that industry.
Yeah. But
But politics are much,
curiosity.
yes.
It's all about the curiosity and always being open to learning as much as you can. And you don't have to take a deep dive in this. That's not what it's about. It's just about topically knowing, a little bit about a subject so that this way you're informed and you can have conversations or at least, form your own opinion about it.
Yeah, that's a big one. I feel like that's why we started talking about stuff in the first place because you would ask me questions about certain topics, and I really wanted you just to have enough information where one, you can form your own opinion so you don't get, brainwashed by social media, which
Mm-hmm.
happens quite a lot. And two, you that conversation might spark you to go do your research. Like an excellent example is, your voting situation today, because right before we started this podcast, you said that you went voting, and I asked you, how did it go? What did you do? And you said, well, I actually did my research, and, it was fairly easy, and I knew exactly where I was going and who I was voting for, and I was very confident in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you remember in 2020, we had this discussion the first time, and you were like, I just don't want to do it. I don't know what to do. I get overwhelmed, and I hate politics. I hate getting involved in it. And so we just shifted that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
right? By just having this casual conversation where it sparked your interest.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep saying I feel empowered by it. And I want other people to feel the same way that I felt at that moment of, wow, okay, it's not this big, scary, this. overwhelming amount of information if you choose to really look into it properly.
That is very nice said. I'm very proud of you. I know I said that, but this is like a huge moment for you, so I
Yes,
know.
we're bringing it to the world, Alex. We're bringing it to the world now.
Yep.
But as always, thank you so much for researching this. Next week, we're going to have to, I think we're going with food. I don't want to excite anybody if that's what they were waiting for. But we'll talk about it this week. And as always, we are reachable by nyabpodcast@gmail.com. And Alex, you want to tell them where they can find us on social media?
Yes, our Instagram is NYAB Podcast. Please follow us. We are pretty hilarious and quite active on it, so engage with
Yeah,
us.
I know that's the funnest part.
So please reach out and we will make sure we hear you out.
All right, everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.